Now that Vlog L is out in the wild and people are shooting all kinds of tests with their GH4s, a lot of people are starting to run into problems with Vlog L, specifically in regards to the color and how it handles the image. So I thought I'd put together kind of a loose, free-flowing video about my thoughts on this and kind of show you some examples why you might not want to use Vlog L. Now I have to preface this is only in regards to recording footage internally on the GH4. So if you have an external recorder and you're doing 10-bit 422 stuff, that's totally different. What I'm talking about right now specifically is the 8-bit 420 internal stuff. And I also have to say that Vlog L does some really good things. You do get extra dynamic range out of it. And if you are recording externally, you will have more flexibility with how you can handle your grade. It's very flat, it's a very pleasing log image. But you do run into some problems when you go to grade it. And these problems might not be immediately apparent, and that's why I think there's a lot of back and forth. There's some people who think Vlog L is amazing and it's great and they love the dynamic range and they don't see any problems with it and they're loving how it grades. It's so great. And then you have other people who think it's absolutely hideous and they're like, it looks terrible. All I see is magenta and cyan and macro blocking and banding, and it's just the worst thing ever. And there seem to be these two camps and no one can really come to a consensus on what's what. And a big reason for that is everyone handles things differently, right? The way people shoot, the way people edit, the way people color things, it's all different and it all varies by the individual. And so what matters to some person might not matter to the other, and what some person does, the specific plugin they use, maybe it's like an 8-bit plugin, or someone else is handling it in a 32-bit workflow, or someone is using a very specific LUT and someone else is using a different LUT. And I mean, there's all these different variables and it's really hard to lock down any specific reason for why Vlog sucks or why Vlog is great. So I wanted to put together this little test, and this is not a scientific test, but it exposes an issue that I have run into with some other test shots. Now, people have been talking about banding and magenta cyan macro blocking. And essentially these are issues with the image that almost 95% of the general population isn't going to recognize. This is kind of pixel peeping stuff, the stuff that, when you're making a film or you're shooting a video, you want it to look its absolute best. And so if you notice these problems, it's going to be frustrating. I equate it to Moray or something like that, like on the 5D Mark II, when everyone was shooting with that camera and they're like, shallowed up the field, it's so great, 1080p HD. And then the moment you pointed out Moray and you said, well, look what it's doing with all these fine details. Look at that like false color. And the moment you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. And I think this is a similar issue. So let's actually get into this and I'll explain kind of what I'm talking about here. So what I've got is two clips. One recorded both of these are recorded internally on the GH4. I've got a Cinelike D clip and I've got a Vlog L clip. Now I recorded these really quickly with one light, trying to get some gradients in here, and there are other worse examples, but hopefully this is sufficient in showing you what the problems are. So what I did was I actually graded the Cinelike D footage to look as close as possible to the Vlog L footage. So I threw on the Cinelike D clip just brightness and contrast and some levels to get the Cinelike D clip to match as close as possible with the Vlog L. And I think it did a pretty good job for the amount of time I spent on it. It's pretty quick, but you can see the back and forth. So Cinelike D, Vlog L. That's the difference, okay? And I did that because I wanted to apply the exact same effects to both of these clips, so there's no issue of, using a specific LUT, on the Vlog stuff and not using that same LUT on the Cinelike D. I wanted it to be fair and square, as fair as possible. And like I said, this isn't perfectly scientific because, to get these to actually match 100% would almost be impossible without knowing the exact science that went into this by the Panasonic engineers, but you can get it pretty close, and hopefully this draws a pretty good parallel. So let me go to this edit point so I can kind of just shuffle back and forth. So that's Cinelike D and Vlog L. Cinelike D, Vlog L. There we go. Now on this adjustment layer, I've added quick curves adjustment. Sorry for the small size here. I'm on my laptop right now, so apologies for the small size, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to zoom into 100% and I'm going to show you the issue. But we got a curves adjustment here and a fast color corrector to just add some saturation back in, because as we know, Vlog L is very desaturated and very flat, so you need to add some contrast and saturation, and that should get you good to go. And now it is good to note that RGB curves and fast color corrector, these are both 32-bit plugins within Premiere. so there's no 8-bit issues going on as some people have run into. So if I turn this adjustment layer on, you can immediately see there's a difference, okay, right? When we've applied the effects. This is the VLOG-L shot, and this is the Cinelike D shot. After the grading, they are a little bit more different, and that's because, trying to match a flat image is a little bit more challenging than trying to match a colored image. But you might not notice it here, but let's zoom in real quick. So even though another thing, someone might say this is set to 1/8, well, that's for playback resolution. That's not for pause resolution. So that's that. Zooming into 100%. This is the VLOG-L stuff. And you can see this kind of strange pattern here. Hopefully you can see it. We'll hope that YouTube saves it in the compression. But there's kind of like a yellow hue along with the white color of the wall, which is a little bit odd, and you might think, well, maybe that's just some paint or something on the wall. That's like not the texture of the wall. But if I switch over to the Cinelike D shot and let it render in preview, it's gone. It's not there. So what's going on? Well, let's move around this image a little bit more. Let's go over here to the dark area in the closet. Significantly underexposed compared to the rest of the image. This is still on the Cinelike D clip. And you'll see there's some noise and stuff, pretty typical for how dark it is back there and the lack of light. And you might see a little bit of patterning in here. But if I switch over to VLOG-L, you can even see it there in the preview. There's a lot more of that blocking and patterning going on there. So that's also kind of peculiar. But you will notice that it is on the Cinelike D footage as well. It's very subtle. It's not as strong and prominent as it is on the VLOG-L. And probably most people think that's a little bit more pleasing than here. This is VLOG-L again. That kind of look. Now remember, this is the exact same effects. The RGB curves, fast color correction applied to both clips. So I'm not doing anything different. The settings for this were I shot ISO 800, f4, and the Cinelike D was -5 on contrast, -5 on noise reduction, -5 on what's the other one? Noise reduction and saturation, and then -2 on sharpness. And the VLOG-L stuff was shot -2 on sharpness, so -2 for both sharpness on Cinelike D and VLOG-L, and -5 on noise reduction. Those are the only two options you get with VLOG-L. You don't get contrast and saturation control on VLOG-L. So back here to fit to frame, and you can even kind of see it in this mode. Hopefully you can see it. So there's that yellow kind of texture on the wall. And then if you even look down here, there's some like cyan. And again, I get this is like kind of pixel peeping. Your average person watching this on YouTube, if this were like a scene in a movie or something, I don't think anyone's going to point out and scream at the screen that you totally screwed up and your shot sucks because of this. But it is a problem. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's zoom in here to the bottom. And so see a weird kind of cyan pattern down here all across the bottom. Could be the wall. Like maybe there's blue paint on the wall. Let's switch over to Cinelike D. Nope. Not an issue. Not there. So Cinelike D and over to VLOG-L. Now, what is the reason for this? Well, I am not a software engineer. I don't claim to be a technical expert, but a lot of theories floating around right now, and I think it's probably accurate. When you're dealing with a codec, an 8-bit 420 codec, you only have so much room to store information. All that color information has to get crammed into a small container. And with VLOG-L, they're cramming more dynamic range, and the way they've mapped it over the codec, if you've watched my other video, you understand that 0 isn't black, or rather I should say black isn't set at 0 and white isn't set at 100. It's actually a narrowed window where VLOG-L records blacks around 10 and it records whites maxing out around 80 on a luminance scale. So from 0 to 100, which almost everyone's used to, like 100% is blown out, it's actually around 80% on VLOG-L. And they did that so it would match with the Vericam vlog, the actual vlog, not VLOG-L. And in theory, it's supposed to make grading easier and LUTs easier and all that, blah, blah. And then there's a lot of people talking about how that actually reduces, and it's not even an 8-bit codec at that point. It's like 7 bits that you're storing all this information. And essentially what I'm trying to say is that it puts the codec under too much stress and pressure. So the Cinelike D clip right here, right? that we were looking at earlier, that's got also an 8-bit 420 codec. So that's why you can see, over here in the shadows, right here, you do get a little bit of that patterning and that texture, but it's much worse with Vlog-L because it's harder for the codec to work with, if that makes any sense. At least that's my belief in the stuff I'm seeing. And I've seen other clips that I've shot that handle this footage the same way. Whenever you have like kind of a smooth pattern or anything like that, especially with grays, mid grays, it definitely doesn't like, and you get some of this weird false color and cyan magenta macro blocking. And so Cinelec D internally is not perfect either. It still is susceptible to the same problems and the same issues, but not to the same extent, which is why I think a lot of people haven't noticed it up until this point. The moment you start looking at Vlog-L under a magnifying glass, these issues become pretty apparent. You can see pretty quickly that there is some stuff going on that you probably don't want to be dealing with. Some people have thrown out the idea that shooting with noise reduction higher, turning noise reduction up to +5 fixes it. Well, I've tested that. That's not the case. Other people have talked about transcoding to different file formats and, transcoding to 444 and then running through Neat Video, and that fixes and cleans it up. But honestly, I think a lot of people who are shooting internally don't want to do those steps and take that extra time just to handle the extra bit of dynamic range you get out of Vlog-L. So that's why it's probably not the best thing to do, because I should say this isn't apparent in every shot. Another reason why not everyone sees this. Certain shots, this issue isn't as apparent. It's only under certain conditions, certain lighting conditions, certain subject matter within the scene. And if the stars align and everything falls into that category where it will be a problem, you might not know it when you're out in the field shooting. It might be something you run into in post-production, and then you're dealing with these kind of weird, again on the Vlog-L clip, like this weird yellow pattern on the wall that is not apparent in Cinelec D. So if you shot at Cinelec D, you wouldn't be dealing with that. Now you're in Vlog-L, and you've got to figure out a way to fix this if you want to, which I would probably want to try and figure out a way to fix that, and whether it's Neat Video or trying to transcode or whatever it might be. But that's a huge hassle, and you probably don't want to do that. Rather, just spend a little bit of money, get an external recorder, record 10-bit 422, and see if that works and see if that fixes the problem. Because even again, like when you're looking at the stuff that I graded, so Cinelec D compared to Vlog-L here, you can even grade Cinelec D to look like Vlog-L. That's not to say it's identical. Vlog-L does have a little bit more dynamic range, but I think it's probably not worth the headache, at least at this point. I'll probably make more videos around this because it's a very new topic. It's very cutting edge, I guess. We're all trying to figure out the best way to handle these files, and I appreciate everyone else out there doing tests, putting up footage, explaining their workflow, because there could be a fix for this. Maybe there is a way to kind of work around it, but I have a strong suspicion that it's just not possible with the internal codec on the GH4. 8-bit 420 is not ideal for log footage. I made another video about why you might not want to shoot log in general, whether you've got an A7S, a GH4, or some other 8-bit 420 camera that will record log. It's probably not the best option for you. It's just you don't have enough information to play with, I guess is what I'm saying. You go into color grading and you're just breaking that codec apart, and it's usually almost always better to try and get it closer in camera to that final product, especially when you're doing this 8-bit 420 stuff. Now, if you're shooting ProRes, 422, 444, 10-bit, RAW even, you do have more flexibility with log. So for those people, a lot better option if you've got a camera like a Blackmagic that can shoot ProRes internally, or you got a Red or an Alexa or something like that. Definitely, log has tremendous features and benefits because of just the smooth tones you can pull out of it and the extra dynamic range you can get. Sorry for making such a long video, but I really wanted to be in depth with this because at first I was really excited about Vlog-L. I was skeptical, had my doubts about it, again, with the internal codec probably not being up to snuff, but I was hoping that they had managed to make it, suitable enough for the GH4 to record internally, but it's just not looking like that yet. And I'd probably stick with something like Cinelec D, Cinelec V, Natural, or another one of the internal codecs that you're familiar with and you're comfortable with. Everyone's got their own style. Everyone likes to do it their own way. If you have a method of shooting that you like and you like the look you're getting out of it, probably stick with it unless you've got an external recorder that can actually handle V-Log-L to its full potential. But even then, there could be other issues. I don't know. I haven't tested it myself. All I can shed light on is the internal stuff. And right now, it's just not looking so good. If you want one more zoom in here, we can kind of look at this. Toggle that back on. So we've got the V-Log-L. And what's interesting is it's not across the entire image, right? Like this section here is pretty clean, but then all of a sudden you get these blotches of just yellow, just like what is that? You know, oh, and I should also too mention, it depends on the grade you put on it. You know, if you, so we could turn saturation down, not as noticeable. You know, if you're doing something that's a little more desaturated or not as contrasty or whatever it might be, you know, that's certainly an option. We'll go back in and compare it to Cinelec D one more time. So we can come down here. Yeah, see, look at all that, and then you go over to Cinelec D, and you know, maybe there's a little bit going on here. Maybe definitely has a little bit of a cyan hue, but it's not the blockiness that we see with V-Log-L. You know, you know what it's almost like. This could be, you know, this may this. Hold on. Just had a crazy idea. Interesting. Okay, so what it could be, another potential theory, maybe. So see how the Cinelec D stuff, it's kind of got a cyan hue just in general, but it's a lot smoother, right? It's across the whole thing. Because V-Log, you can go over to V-Log, it could be that these portions of the codec are picking up that color, and these other ones just simply don't have any color information at all. And that's why you get the weird pattern, because it's saturating these portions, but there's nothing to saturate here. I ran into a similar issue years back when we were shooting on the 5D Mark II, and we were shooting with the Technicolor Cinestyle profile. And I think I talked about this in another video, but hey, why not rehash it? If you made it this far, hey, let's just keep talking. We shot with Cinestyle, and I was grading it, and the actress, the talent who was in the spot, her hair was a brown brunette, and I was grading it, bringing the color up and everything, but there were strands in her hair, like chunks of her hair, which no matter how much I saturated, no matter how much I pushed and tried to bring color to, there just was no color there. So it, you know, she had like this brown hair, but then there were these like slight streaks of gray in it, and you know, maybe something not everyone would pick up on, but I was like, she did not have gray hairs, like chunks, you know, strands of gray hair in her hair. So I just was like really kind of like what the heck is going on? And this was years ago, and Cinestyle was brand new, and everyone thought it was so cool and all the rage. But I think it just turned out that there wasn't color information there at all for the saturation plug into the color correction to work with. So it just had nothing to amplify. It didn't know what color it was supposed to be because it didn't have it to begin with. And a similar issue could be happening here where like it knows that this wall's supposed to be that slight cyan that you see in Cinelec D, but these other portions, it might just not have any color information. Let's play around with this for a little bit. So I don't know if I think I'm maxed at 200 here. I don't think I can go to 3. Yeah, we'll have to double that up. All right, so we're going to throw a fast color corrector on there. Sorry, this is totally like live, just struck me in the moment here. Certainly not a planned ending for this video. But I don't think you know, no matter what, I don't think you really want to be shooting V-Log-L internal anyway, because no matter what the reason is, it's still a problem, right? So let's go 200%. Okay, so there is definitely some color going on there. We got it there, but it's just, yeah, you know, the more you push that saturation, it really becomes an issue, and you've got absolutely, that's just gross, you know. That's, ooh, look over here. This is not looking so hot. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. We could even play it a little bit. Let's see. If I'm screen recording, what, playback full res? Oh, yeah. Look at that. Okay, let's check out Cinelec D. What's that looking like? Yeah, much more subtle. Still a similar effect, but not nearly as bad. So, kind of pick your poison, you know? Yeah, like, look. Okay, so Cinelec D, All right, we've got this kind of smooth, you know, it's normal white here into kind of the cyan, and we've got, let's go 100%, cup over here. Yep. See, you're seeing a little bit of that, but it's not nearly as bad as that. Like I'm at, you know, 400% saturation here, and there's really not much there to work with. But you do have these portions that look like they got a little bit extra saturation or extra color, you know, false color, whatever it might be. Interesting. If someone has a fix for this or a workaround or something they do that doesn't involve transcoding and neat video and a bunch of other steps, like it needs to be something that you can do in the camera, whether it's settings or a certain way to set up Vlog L. I don't know what it might be, but I just got to go back to that. I just don't think it's possible in the 8-bit 420 codec. I'd love to see it though. It'd be cool, you know. You get some nice skin tones with Vlog L. You also get nice skin tones with Cinelect D. I mean, it's, you know, kind of how you grade it. So, personal preference. I don't know. Maybe this wouldn't affect the kind of shots you do. Maybe it wouldn't be an issue for you, but certainly for me, I wouldn't want to go film something and have it come back looking like this. So, we'll see. Time to do more testing.